I've told this story exactly once, to my foreman, the morning after it happened. He logged it as an anomalous relic event, sublevel 9, tunnel corridor K14, and filed it with facilities management. That was 8 months ago. The Collegium has been filing formal objections ever since. I haven't changed a word of my account, and I don't intend to. My name is Idris Kale. I am 57 years old. I have been a transit infrastructure mechanic for 22 years, the last 9 of them on Soreth, specifically on the deep maintenance crews responsible for the sublevels beneath the Vorith Central Station complex. It's good work. The pay is reasonable, the hours are long, and nobody important looks at you twice. On a colonial world shared between 4 species, being invisible suits me fine. Sublevel 9 is where the old city lives. Above it, 300 years of construction, transit arteries, service conduits, atmospheric management, coolant networks for the station array. Below it, bedrock. And embedded in that bedrock, running perpendicular to tunnel corridor K14 for its full 60-meter span, the Soreth Archway. The Collegium calls it the Archway. The maintenance crews call it the Wall. It's neither. It's an arch, a true arch, 60 meters tall, carved from a single piece of black stone so uniform in composition that no geological survey has ever placed its origin. The glyphs on its surface run in 11 registers, top to bottom, each register a meter high. Pre-galactic. The xenolinguists who've studied it for 4 decades have translated about a third. The rest, they say, requires a key they haven't found. The Collegium received the excavation permit for sublevel 9 143 years ago. They've renewed it every 40 years since, mostly because no other applicant has ever challenged them, and mostly because nothing they've tried has worked. I know this because the Collegium's maintenance liaison, a 4-armed scholar named Verith SUU, 3rd level, very proud of his institutional tenure, likes to tell the maintenance crews about it. In some detail. At some length. Usually while we are trying to work. The Collegium has attempted 9 formal activations of the archway. They used acoustic resonance arrays in the first 2. Signal cast projection matrices in the next 4. A reconstructed glyph sequence input, broadcast at the arch zone base frequency, in the 7th. I don't know what they used in the 8th and 9th because by then I'd learned to stop reading their newsletters. None of it worked. The archway sat in sublevel 9 the same way it had sat there for 15,000 years. Black, cold, mildly inconvenient for corridor traffic, and completely indifferent to the Collegium's intentions. The morning it happened, I was in K14 on a solo job. Coolant manifold for the secondary atmospheric system, a standard reroute, the kind of work that takes 4 hours if you're careful and 2 if you're not, and I'm always careful. The manifold runs along the east wall of K14, which is the wall adjacent to the base of the archway. You have to squeeze to get to the far coupling. It's tight work, single-person clearance, which is why they send 1 mechanic instead of a crew. I had the coupling torqued and was working back out when my tool bag caught on a conduit bracket and spilled across the floor. I went down on one knee to collect it, lost my balance on the grating. The grating in K14 is original colonial construction and has never been level, and put my right forearm out to catch myself. My forearm came down flat against the base of the archway. Not the conduit. Not the wall. The stone. The first thing I noticed was that it was warm. Not ambient warm the way any surface in a maintained tunnel is warm. Warm the way a living thing is warm. The second thing I noticed was that the glyphs in the lowest register began to move. I did not move. I have been in industrial environments long enough to know that when something unexpected starts happening around you, the correct response is stillness. You assess. You don't flail. The glyph movement ran up the arch in sequence, lowest register to highest, 1 meter at a time, each register brightening as the sequence passed through it and then holding that light. The color was green-white, the kind of light that makes you think of very deep water. It took 11 seconds. At the end of 11 seconds, the full arch was lit, every register, top to bottom, steady and even, with no sound and no vibration and no heat beyond what I'd felt at the base. Then the arch spoke. Not acoustically. The sound didn't come through my ears. It came through my forearm, through the skin, a low-frequency transmission that my body processed as language before my conscious mind caught up. I understood it the way you understand your own name called in a crowd. Not heard. Recognized. It said, identity confirmed. Compact of Soreth, Article 1. The Executor is present. Begin the commission. I stayed where I was. My forearm was still against the stone. I didn't know what removing it would do, and I wasn't in a hurry to find out. The commission took 16 minutes. The arch delivered it in the same way, through the stone, through my forearm, in language I understood completely and had never learned. It was not a speech. It was a legal document, precise and structured, with no decorative language and no ambiguity in its terms. The Compact of Soreth had been placed in the archway 15,000 years ago by a pre-galactic civilization whose name I won't attempt to reproduce here, though the arch gave it to me. They had built on Soreth, and on 11 other worlds I was given the coordinates for, and they had built something worth protecting. The Compact designated a specific bloodline as Executor, not a ruler, not a priest, not a king. An Executor. Someone to read the terms, confirm they were being violated, and take the action the Compact prescribed. The terms were being violated. Had been, the arch told me, for approximately 340 years. The Vithi Collegium's excavation permit was issued in violation of Article 7, which prohibited any non-signatory organization from claiming administrative authority over a Compact site. The Collegium had never been a signatory. They couldn't be. The Compact signatory list had closed 15,000 years ago. The prescribed action was specific. The Executor was to read the Compact's executive summary aloud, in the presence of the violating party's senior authorized representative, formally notifying them of the breach, after which, the Compact's enforcement provisions would activate automatically. The arch would handle the rest. I didn't need to do anything else. I pulled my forearm back. The arch stayed lit. I picked up my tool bag, checked the time, and finished the coolant reroute. It took another 90 minutes. The arch stayed lit the entire time, steady green-white, running floor to crown. One of the Collegium survey crew came through K14 around the 90-minute mark, saw the lit arch, and went away at speed. I heard the alarm go up through the tunnel system about 4 minutes later. Verith SUU arrived with 6 colleagues and a full recording crew while I was running my post-completion check on the manifold coupling. He was breathing in the upper register way that means agitation in his species. Quick, shallow, all 4 arms moving in that particular pattern I'd learned to read as distress. He wanted to know what I had done. What I had activated. What methodology I had used. He wanted to know my credentials and my authorization level and whether I had touched the surface without a certified Archeo interface glove. I said, I fell. He said a great many things after that. I let him finish. Then I took out the Compact copy of the Compact's executive summary that the arch had printed, and yes, it printed. A slot in the base of the arch that I hadn't noticed in 9 years of working that corridor produced a single sheet of dense, closely registered text, in Verith Su's language and 4 others, while I was finishing the coolant job, and I read it aloud. The executive summary took 4 minutes and 12 seconds. I read it at a pace that made it easy to follow. I didn't editorialize, and I didn't look up from the page. When I finished, I folded the sheet once and put it in my chest pocket next to my work order. Verith SUU asked, in a very controlled way, what I intended to do. I said, nothing. The Compact said the enforcement provisions activate automatically. I just had to read it aloud. You were here. So were your 6 colleagues and your recording crew, which I assume is still running. He asked if I understood what this meant for the Collegium's 40-year research mandate. I said I understood it meant the permit was void, which the Compact's Article 7 had always indicated it was. He asked what gave me the authority to make that determination. I said I hadn't made any determination. The Compact made the determination. The arch confirmed it. I read the executive summary aloud in front of authorized Collegium representatives, as instructed. That was my full role. He asked what I was. I thought about that for a moment. The arch had given me a word for it. The translation was approximate, but it landed cleanest as Executor. I said, Transit Mechanic. Rank 4, Infrastructure Maintenance, Soreth Transit Authority, and apparently an Executor of the Compact of Soreth. I paused. The arch prints copies if you want one. The slot's in the base, left side. I picked up my tool bag, logged the job complete on my handheld, and walked back out through K14. The arch was still lit when I left. It was still lit 3 hours later when I checked the maintenance monitors before shift end. It's been lit for 8 months. The enforcement provisions, I still don't know exactly what they entail, because the Compact's executive summary covered the breach and the notification procedure, not the specifics of enforcement, and I didn't ask the arch for clarification, appear to be running on their own schedule. The Collegium's permit renewal application, which was due 6 months ago, hasn't been processed. 3 other institutional bodies have filed claims on the site. All 3 have been rejected at intake. I don't know who's rejecting them. I don't think it's the Transit Authority. Verith SUU filed a formal complaint alleging that I had tampered with a protected archaeological site. The Transit Authority's legal team reviewed my job log and the coolant manifold completion record, and replied that I had been in K14 on authorized maintenance work and had documented no physical modifications to any structure. The Collegium's own recording crew footage, which I understand they submitted as evidence, shows me working on a conduit coupling, falling, putting my hand on the arch to catch myself, and then finishing my job. Tampering wasn't the word the Transit Authority's legal team used. The word they used was incidental contact. I've been asked, since, whether I feel different, whether knowing changes something, whether I walk into K14 now and feel the weight of 15,000 years, the civilization that built the arch, the compact they entrusted to a bloodline that eventually ended up with me, a mechanic on a colonial transit system on a mid-tier frontier world, 400 light-years from Earth. Honestly? Not much. The coolant manifold is still the coolant manifold. The grading in K14 is still unlevel. I still trip on the same bracket I've been meaning to report for 2 years. What I notice is that the arch is warm when I walk past it now. Not dramatically. Just the way a room is warm when someone you trust is already in it. It doesn't speak. It doesn't light up. It's just warm. I filed the incident report the morning after. Standard form, anomalous relic event. I listed the time, the location, the duration of contact, the visual changes observed, and the content of the commission in summary. I noted that I had read the executive summary aloud in the presence of 6 Collegium representatives and a recording crew. I noted that a printed copy had been produced and was in my possession. In the notes field, I wrote, "Relic appears functional. No damage to infrastructure. Coolant manifold reroute completed on schedule." My foreman signed off on it that afternoon and filed it with facilities management. I don't know what the compact's enforcement provisions will ultimately look like. I don't know what the pre-galactic builders built on Soreth, or what they were protecting, or whether any of it is still intact somewhere in the bedrock below sublevel 9. I don't know what an executor is supposed to do after the notification is delivered. I read the document. I stood in front of the people who needed to hear it. I did what the Arch asked. The rest, as far as I can tell, is not my department. I go back to K14 twice a week, same as always. I check the coolant manifold. I check the atmospheric junction on the north wall. I sign off on the corridor inspection log. The arch stands at the south end, 60 meters of warm black stone and steady green-white light, and I walk past it on my way in and on my way out. Neither of us has anything further to say.